Hey everyone, in Follower One, it's Mike Henry Sr. And today we have as our guest for Meet Follower One, we have Wendy Jacobs. And Wendy's in the process of joining right now. And so we don't have anyone else on here yet. So hi Wendy, how are you? Can you hear me okay? Can you hear us?
Just barely.
I don't know how to make myself any louder. How about on your phone? Can you turn up? Are you on a phone? Can you turn up the
Yeah, I got
volume?
my
Would
phone
that
up
help?
all the way. I'll just try to listen really hard.
Okay. Um, So welcome to Meet Follower One. Nice to meet you again. We met on the mission trip that you're on right now. So, and I see we have Takoy Bell has joined us as well. So hi, Takoy. Wendy, and here comes a couple other people. Rick still has just joined. So we'll get a few more in here in a minute.
Okay.
So, Wendy, why don't you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, sure. I became a Christian in 2005. Prior to that, I really didn't believe in God. My family weren't really believers in God, and we never went to church or anything like that. Although, in God's provision, in Pittsburgh, where I grew up, we had a church right next to our house. And so whenever my parents wanted to have some time, they would send us up there on Wednesday nights, and so I would attend youth group. But my family who didn't believe in God and didn't worship God, they kind of, once they did, they told me to get a Bible. And then I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get a Bible. But I hadn't planned on doing anything with it. And then we had a hurricane hit Florida, and it pretty much ripped open the corner of our house. And there was like probably a good $50,000 worth of damage. And I was
Wow.
on the phone with an insurance agent. Um, and we had those cordless phones, so I would be waiting. The phone would go die, and I would have to get the other one. And I must have been on hold for 5-6 hours, and I just broke down. I lost control of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was desperate. Um, I was crying, I was yelling, and I just picked up that Bible out of desperation. And I just happened to turn to Philippians, where it says, if you have any comfort from his love, if any unity in the spirit, then be like-minded as Jesus and consider others above yourself in humility. And so when I read that, I knew God was real, because I felt the words penetrate my heart and my mind. And
Yeah.
I just felt a peace and a love and appreciation, like in the midst of hurricane aftermath. And I was like, well, this God has to be real. And so right then and there, I believed in God, and I asked Jesus to be my Lord and Savior. So I live in
Very
Port St.
cool.
Lucie. I've been married for 23 years. In fact, we're going to Costa Rica for our 23rd anniversary, and we have some fun things planned. And yeah, I'm a board certified behavior analyst by trade, and I work with kids with autism and their families. And I have 2
Wow.
kitties.
Very cool. Very cool. So, that's how did you get involved in the job that you're in now? How did you get involved in working with people in that situation?
Yeah, so I was always interested in helping people. So originally I went into psychology, um, but I wasn't really quite understanding all the psychological stuff they were trying to teach me. And then they had a class in behavior analysis. And when I took that class, like, I was like, oh, this really makes sense. It's so objective, and I know what to do.
Mhm.
And so I was really interested in that. And my professor, got me in contact with Threshold, which is a assisted living facility for kids that couldn't live at home. And I did some work there, and then I started working with small children with autism that were nonverbal, and just working with them and seeing the progress that could be made with this science and technology. It was very, very fulfilling. And so that's how I started.
Well, that's great. I mean, I'm amazed. It's very interesting as I do interviews and things like that. It's very interesting to meet people who are living in a gifting of some degree or another. They have a passion about what they're doing. And so it's just very exciting to meet someone with your skills. It's just cool.
Yeah.
So how did you hear about Follower of One?
It was the darndest thing, God works all the time, and I just see it more and more. I started listening to this podcast called the Brant and Sherry Oddcast because I was listening to Christian FM, and I was really into his show because he is on the autism spectrum, the DJ. So I started subscribing to their podcast, and they would, insert, like, they would use humor, but then they would also teach about, spiritual things with Jesus. And I really liked it. And so he just happened to be talking about Follower of One and Mission Marketplace. And I was like, oh, wow. I was like, that sounds really cool. I really want to integrate my faith more into my work because, I meet with all these families and I'm just like, how do they do this without Jesus? How do they do it? Like prior to me coming to Jesus, I was just like, now that I am with Jesus, I'm like, how do people do it? How do they live their lives without Jesus? And so, no one really teaches you how to, get people interested in Jesus, right? It's all like, hey, do you know about Jesus? Do you know he loves you? And people aren't into that, especially when they're, in the struggle of having a child with autism. They may even be angry at God, but so when I heard of it and then when I looked into it, I was like, wow, this is like so practical. So it kind of like mirrors like my journey from psychology into behavior analysis, right? I have an evangelist heart, but I didn't know how to do it. But with this method here, I'm like, this is really like cracking the code. Like this is such a practical way to show people the love of God through Jesus, and to stir to pique their curiosity, like why is she doing this, or why is he doing this? And it was so simply profound. I was like, oh, they're having a mission trip, so I'd like click join, like let me get started, because I'd envisioned like being able to do great things for God, in my workplace, but I just bumbling through. Not really getting very far. So I was very grateful to find it, because I think it's a valuable set of tools.
Well, I mean, and that's God working. I'm not too sure I know anybody with the Brant and Sherry Oddcast, so I'm kind of cool that they found us and are talking about it, and I didn't know anything about it. So
it was definitely meant for me, because God knew what I'd be doing.
Well, I think it's, to me, I appreciate your description. I appreciate your feedback. To me, it's just natural. I think we make everything so much harder than it has to be. And then, that's comfortable. It's too hard for me to do it. I don't have to mess with it. I just go do my job. And as long as I don't shoot anybody today or become a major embarrassment to the Lord, then I'm okay.
Yeah.
And, and it just seems like so much of our lives become wasted when we do that, because we're totally disengaged during those hours when we're at work.
Yeah. And I've
So
tried
you've
other
been
ways.
doing. Go ahead.
Oh, I said I've tried other ways to incorporate my faith. I've listened to like a lot of apologetic things, but those things just turned out more to be like arguing with people than really helping them. So
Yeah.
That's why I really appreciate this ministry that you've started.
Well, well, now you're on the Marketplace mission trip right now, correct? As we
Correct.
recording this. So
Correct.
what do you think so far? How's it going?
You know, God has been working mightily already. I did start a prayer group at work. God brought 3 people to mind. I asked the first person, what's your availability? Are you interested first? And what's your availability? She said Thursday at 4. I said, great. Went to the second person. What's your availability? Oh, Thursday, 3, 4 o'clock, maybe Friday. I'm like, okay, Thursday at 4 o'clock. The third person was not available yet. She was on paid time off. But when she came back, I found out that she had a client that she was going to be working with at that time. And I was like, oh, I really wanted her to join. But, all 3 of us were there, and it turned out that the client had canceled that session. And this is a client that never really cancels. So
Mm-hmm.
I know that was God.
Yeah.
and I got confirmation that it was God because during our 1.5 hour prayer time, she had said, I have been looking for this. She is new to our company. She had just started probably about a month ago. And she had said she left a situation where she had a strong woman of faith there, and she would pray over the desks and pray over the staff and everything. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like, I've been missing it. I've been missing, there's no prayer here. And she's like, I've been waiting for this, and here it
Very
is.
good. Very good.
So, yeah, so that was all arranged by God,
Yeah.
obviously.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
very cool.
Yeah, yeah. And as it turns out, we all had the same goals. We wanted to plant seeds in the workplace. We wanted to be a light in the company. We want everybody to be to love God and take
Yeah.
Jesus as their Lord and Savior. So, from corporate all the way down. And so I think it'll be a good group because the 4 of us, we can hold each other accountable. We can build each other up. And so I think God's up to big things there.
Yeah, very cool. To me, it's exciting to just see how God's working. I see we had a couple of other people join. So Sohail Sadiq and Solomon Johnson and Chris Castro have joined since I last said anything. If you think about it, if you have any questions or anything like that for Wendy, put them in the chat. We're just getting to meet Wendy, and explain to me your job title again. Behavioral
Oh, yeah, it's a Board Certified Behavior Analyst.
behavior analyst. Thank you.
Yeah, so
Uh,
we're mostly known for working with children and adults with autism. That's where we made our big splash. But yeah, behavior analysis is they're in organizational behavior management, so they work with companies to change, the productivity of workers or
mhm.
boost morale. Of course, in the basic and applied research, but you can apply it to anything. But
Yeah.
we're most well known for autism because it's the most effective treatment out there to
Mhm.
improve autism.
Well, and we probably ought to apply it to, being a Christian in the marketplace. We,
Yeah.
just because for me, I'm, behavioral analysis, I'm mostly analyzing my own behavior.
Mm-hmm.
When my father would analyze my behavior when I was a kid, that meant I was getting spanked.
Right.
But my behavior didn't often measure up, and so it would get corrected. But I think about that with our, just the mindset that people bring associated with their faith. Many of the people that we talk to, because we're doing this live stream in the Follower One community, are already talking to people they agree with us. Many people in the church think there's nothing they can do in their workplace.
Right.
And their um, their primary objective is to stay out of trouble or to not be obnoxious,
Mm-hmm.
and to do a good job. And what all that other stuff is Jesus's problem. It's not their problem.
Right. Or the pastor's problem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I think, I sometimes I get tired of that because I'm constantly trying to analyze people and how receptive they are to the idea that our faith can permeate all uh, 7 days of our week. Most of us think we can't.
Yes, and I've had I've had a conviction, like, and a goal, like I want to get closer to Jesus. I want to be aware of his presence more. I read that book, oh boy, what's it called? Brother Lawrence. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but I'm like,
Practice
this
the
guy,
presence of God.
yeah, this guy, Jesus was on his mind like 24/7. I'm like, and I was like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to get there, but when you view your workplace through this lens that's been provided through this ministry, it really does help me to experience his presence in new ways, because I'm constantly listening. Okay, God, what can I do? And I remember on a previous talk, I had asked anybody, I was like, hey, does anybody have any ideas of what I could do to get people to ask me, why are you doing this? Because I work in a pretty nice place with pretty nice people. And I remember I told everybody, oh, I brought in some treats, but that's not really that uncommon. But then when I went into work yesterday, we had an apprentice who was training a newbie, and a new person who was going to be a behavior technician. And I noticed that he was new. And I was like, hi, my name's Wendy. What's your name? He's like, I'm Alex. And the apprentice said, yeah, this is one of our BCBAs, and she brings in treats, so you'll like her. So like, I didn't even I was like, okay, so it did get noticed. So I guess I would just encourage everyone out there, like, when you're doing this and you think nothing's happening, something might be happening.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder.
Yeah. And also that you may be experiencing some spiritual warfare as well, to be prepared for that, because I know that was a topic on one of the other streams. And I definitely experienced some of that too. My husband of 23 years is not saved. We were married before I was saved. So we were both non-believers. I came to Christ, and he hasn't yet. And I say yet because God told me that he would. So
Good.
I'm of that mindset. When I first was thinking about it, I was just a wreck, because I was thinking he was, going to hell and I would never see him again. And God just gave me that peace, and I haven't worried about it since. It's been years since I worried about it. But he was coming to church with me, and I was really encouraged by that. But just this past week, he got offended, and then I'm not going to church today because the pastor came by, and Nick and I were talking at the table, and he said good morning to Nick and ignored me. And he's just being a snob. And I knew that was not our pastor's intention, that just was. And I was like, yeah, this is a spiritual warfare everybody was talking about. But it didn't sway me. Before, this would have broke me. I would have been in that anxious place again and worrying, because I'd been a worrier my whole life. But God gave me that peace again. Like, remember what I told you. This is just a bump in the road. Just remember what I told you. So I haven't worried about that. So just, even though there's spiritual warfare, there is that peace still within the warfare.
Well, and I just want to encourage you so I was not a believer for the first 5 years of our marriage. And our husbands, your husband will see stuff that you don't know, you don't even imagine. Yeah. And so I want to encourage everybody listening to this podcast, listening to this recording, everybody on the live stream, Let's not force people who don't follow Jesus to do what we do. They're going to do what they do. And you know what? What they do is not outside of Jesus's reach. They're not, Jesus is going, oh, shucks, he didn't come to church today. Uh,
Yeah.
we had a really great message for him, too, and he did show up.
I know. Yeah.
Jesus
Yeah.
is not surprised by any of this. He's working his deal. And so I think sometimes we get the behaviors ahead of the heart. And, the Lord Jesus is working on the heart. He's not worried. The behaviors follow.
Right.
And so if I were him, I wouldn't go. So I found out about Christ. I really found out about salvation being by grace alone through faith alone, because I was going to church so that if it didn't work for me, I was going to tell Vicky I'm never going back. And, my plan was I was trying to simplify my life. So I'll go do what she asked me to do for 3 or 4 months. And if it doesn't work, then I'm never going back. And they had to come and do a workshop on how you could take a pocket Bible and show someone how they could know for a fact they were going to heaven. And I went to that and heard that guy, Vicky never said a word. Vicky wasn't there. As a matter of fact, when I came home from that workshop and I told her how wild this was, she even talked about how, oh, yeah, right. She was tired of hearing me complain about all this stuff and not follow Jesus. And so she was just had me tuned out.
Yeah.
But you just never know what God's going to use. And to me, that's exciting. So the more you pursue the Lord and the difference that makes in your life, that will be very visible to your husband, and he will see that. And the Lord uses that stuff. So to me, it's so cool to see God working in the lives of people. And, for him, if I'm going to look at a million things and say, well, he didn't do the one that I was wanting, but he did 999,000 others, how am I going to complain?
Right. Yeah, and my mom told me, like, oh, I think Harold misses the old you. I'm like, how could he miss the old me? Like, the old me was selfish and angry and rebellious. Like, why would he miss that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think she was wrong. I think he does appreciate the new me, because I am a much better wife with Christ than without.
Mm-hmm.
Much better. And it strengthens the marriage. Like, even if it's only one person, it strengthens the marriage.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, one of my secret reasons for doing it was I didn't want Vicky yanking on me to go to church all the time.
Yeah.
And so, the Lord knew what he was doing. I'm not one of those people that does what he's told to do anyway. And so, I had to discover all this stuff ourselves. And that's the key. I think we learn so much more. We retain so much more of what we discover than what we're told.
That's true.
And so, as a behavior analyst, you got your hands full, but at the same time, you've got enough knowledge to know Jesus is driving, and we can, keep asking him, are we there yet? Or we can just enjoy the ride.
Right. Yeah. Very true.
So, what's next for you? Now that you've sampled through the follower of one stuff, you've got 3 days left on the mission trip. What do you see as what's next? You're going to continue working in your prayer group at work and praying for your husband. What else?
Yes. I did take advantage of an idea that was on one of the devotions about getting someone a gift card. And so I did that last night. I had a supervision last night with a RBT, and after the session, I was like, "Oh, I have something for you," and I gave it to her. I said, "This is a it's $25 gift card to Panera, for you to enjoy. I just appreciate what you do for the kids here. And
Mm-hmm.
she was so touched by it. Like, she's like, thank you so much. Like, I'm glad somebody notices it, because RBT is not, it's not an easy job,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, they do feel underappreciated. So, just keeping my eyes and ears open to the Holy Spirit to see what else he gives me. He's been giving me a lot of ideas, bringing a lot of family members to mind, and me reaching out to them and praying for them and offering, whatever else I could do for them in their situations.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's been leading me there, and I know he'll give me more ideas for my workplace. I've another goal that I have is I'm trying to take more time to listen, because you know how, I don't know if you've ever gotten to the habit, like, where you just get up and you pray, and you're like, okay, I'm prayed up, now I'm gonna go, and like, you don't spend any time listening to hear what God's gonna
Yep.
say back to you. And
Mm-hmm.
so I've been doing that forever, and I just recently, I need to a friend of mine says, yeah, I set a timer, and I excuse me, I listened for God for 20 minutes. I'm like, wow. I was so impressed by that. I was like, I don't even know if I could do a minute, but so I set my timer for 5 minutes. I'm like, okay, I could do this for 5 minutes. Come on. So I did it, and the first day was hard. Second day was much easier. I think I skipped a couple of days on the weekend there, and then I went back to it, and I did it for a couple times for 10 minutes, and it gets easier. But it's just
Mm-hmm.
something that you don't, that I haven't been used to doing in my prayer life. It really adds value to
Mm-hmm.
do that, because I do hear from God, and so I am experiencing his presence and his voice, and it just like fuels you to want to do more, and to maintain that closeness and intimacy with him. So
Mm-hmm.
that'll get me going, and I'm sure God will guide me even further. But that's what
Yeah.
I have so far.
Well, I think that's a great reminder too. I get busy and then I stop listening. I like to have dedicated time when I listen to him. There's a book, The Four Keys to Hearing God's Voice by Mark Verkler. And he actually talks about, in the four keys, the fourth key is writing it down. And he actually encourages you to do this listening with a notebook in your hand so that you can make notes, because we're commanded to write it down and we'll forget it. And I
Yeah.
actually do it sitting typically at my computer, typing on my keyboard. That one of the other keys is visualizing. So just imagining that I'm talking to Jesus. I have another chair in my office right over there. And just try and listen to him and write down what he tells me. And, just remember that even the crazy ideas, if they're not unbiblical, they might be from him. I need to start figuring out how I can do something about them, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I'm
Yeah, I like
grateful for you joining us today.
yeah, I'm grateful to be here.
So, to me, it's fun getting to know people and getting to know new folks and people who are on the mission trip. Thank you for all that positive feedback. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
we're
this is the truth.
Well, and any suggestions? This is open to people listening in the podcast. We're always open to ideas, um, or suggestions of things that we can be doing differently, or
Hmm.
we want to make this a community where people are welcome and they're also contributing. They're involved and engaged. There's several people on this chat today who are part of that. It says we have, wow, I'm just looked, we have some other people who joined since the last time I was on here. Stacy Brown and Diane Congrega are on here, and Sohail has joined. I think I said hi to Sohail a few minutes ago. So very cool that everyone could join. And
Yes.
it's so cool to be doing these live streams. Just take a moment and pray for the people that you see in the community today. And pray for Wendy, and let's watch God use us in the world, because he's doing something. I don't even understand what it is. I just know he gives me these crazy ideas and I just keep doing them. So Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today, and thanks to everyone else on the live stream. I'm grateful.
Thank you for having me, Mike. I appreciate it.
Well, and for all of you, remember, we have people on a mission trip right now. Many of the people listening to this call, I think, are on the mission trip. So let's be praying for the people on the mission trip, and ask God who we need to be talking to, who are our friends, how we can be a blessing to the people around us. He doesn't bring us across anybody by accident. And so I think we've just got to remember that God has a purpose for every interaction every day. And I'm grateful for you being a part of this interaction today. Wendy, thank you so much for being a part of our community.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Goodbye, everyone. Thanks very much.
Bye.
Bye.